Kevin Duala.
At breakfast. BBC Radio Merseyside.
Now, earlier in the programme, we heard from the Principal and Chief Executive of Hubert College, Rachel Hennigan. Now it's time to hear from some of the students who are studying there. With me are 3 A-level students. We have Lily. Morning, Lily.
Morning.
We have Rachel. Morning, Rachel.
Hello.
And we have Rex. Morning, Rex.
Hi.
Thanks for joining us this morning. So first of all, let's have just a quick rundown of the studies that you, the subjects that you're studying at the moment.
I do A-level economics, English literature and history.
And Rachel?
I do law, politics and history.
So you're right. So you're chomping at the bit, aren't you?
Yeah, definitely.
And Rex, what about you?
I also do law, politics and history.
And we've got Sir here. Sir. So morning. What's your name?
Anthony.
Anthony. So you must be, even before we start talking to the students, you must be very proud of that they're here today and be able to speak up.
Yeah, they are fantastic. It's great to see students engaged in politics and in studies and in making sure that they are sort of progressing to their next stage. Yeah.
I'll come to you, Lily, as well. That politics and journalism are key interests for you. Is why we're all here today. But for you, though, personally, and the age that you are, what's important to you and what's important to the community?
I think for me personally, like university debts that students get sort of a big issue in England today because they are so proportionate compared to like real incomes that people earn. So I think maybe something to do with that would help in the future.
Okay, and same question for you then, Rachel. You know, your vote, you know, when you can vote, your vote counts. You know, what would be important to you and what would you want to vote for? What change would you like to see?
I'd definitely like a lot more investment in education because young people are the future, and I think it's really important that we focus on like aspirations and how to help young people achieve their goals.
How do we do that?
Well, I definitely think investing in schools and libraries and more public places that allow people to have access to educational resources will really help them like build on the foundations from a young age.
And that's key, isn't it? Is that, you know, we learn by example, don't we? And putting the foundations in from a younger age, from, you know, you are decision makers of the future. You know, that's key, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely, because a lot of the politicians, I do feel, don't really represent young people because they're a lot older than us. So I think trying to get more young people into politics would be really beneficial because then our viewpoints will be far better represented.
And speaking about representing and from an early age, Rex, what would your message be to decision makers out there? What would you want to vote for?
For me personally, I want to make like education a bit more accessible to people because I feel like higher education is very restrictive in whether it be financial or other means, and I think that is a huge shame because there are a lot of billion people out here in the country who with that step of higher education can really have a great impact in the future and go on to do amazing things, and therefore I believe that like restricting them would be unfair and for the nation would also decrease what we're capable of, and therefore I would like to see more measures taken in place to make higher education more accessible to the masses and young people.
So being put on the spot then, Rachel, and given the magic wand, as it were, to make all of those changes, how do they go about doing that? Do you think you should be involved more in Houses of Parliament, or how can you get the older, your words not mine, the older politicians to listen?
Well, I take A-level politics, but I feel as if prior to this point in my education, politics isn't really taught thoroughly enough from an early age in schooling. So if that happens, it may allow young people to be more aware from a young age, and then they'll have a more appetite to be involved because they've been taught about it. Whereas obviously I take politics now, and what I've learnt about in politics is obviously expanding my knowledge, but a lot of people who don't take politics don't have that same understanding of how to vote or who to vote for. So it's important that those lessons are taught from an earlier age in school.
Anthony, we've just been listening to the students there just talking so eloquently. How do you get them to talk so eloquently, and how do you get them to have such open views and powerful views from an early age?
I think it's a combination here of students who are very committed already, and they come from secondary school well prepared, and then at our level it's the conversations that you have between teachers and staff. We've got very committed staff. and we've got students who are passionate about things, and if you put those two things together, you get this kind of magic that you get from the students this morning, who are the sort of very eloquent and very committed and very eager to try and make the world a better place.
Yeah, and very inspirational as well. And we were talking earlier on, Claire, weren't we, just about, the children are the future, and it's going to be really, really interesting to find out what they want to vote and how important their vote is.
Yeah, and I think I just want to know, hearing the students are so eloquent, it's fantastic, and I always think the future's in such safe hands when you listen to young people like these express themselves so well. But we were talking about the difference between local and general elections earlier, and I just wonder, for a lot of young people, I think for me the first election I ever voted in was a local election. How much your sort of friends, you are aware of like what local councils do and how that affects your life and how you think about those kind of things when you're going to vote in these elections?
Lily?
I think maybe because I don't do politics, I'm sort of less aware than the other two students here today. But I think that general elections are important to sort of see the bigger picture and vote personally for what you want to see in your local area, and hopefully that can then be magnified within like the national range, sort of help improve the country or go forward in the way that you want to see it.
And in terms of like the local, what really locally matters to you, is it like the state of the high street or the kind of jobs that you might do in the future, whether you can afford to buy a house in the future where you want to? Are those kind of things important to you?
I think jobs are really important to me, but like on a foundation level, education first, like as obviously the two students here have also said. But I think that maybe improving and maybe incentivising, not incentivising, but encouraging children to go to school and to achieve their potential, so then they can also help in the future too. To to help build the future and build the country to obviously its maximum potential.
Yeah. And I'm sure one of our future MPs will probably want to answer that question, Claire. Rachel?
Well, definitely, because I feel as if local issues are ignored. As you mentioned, general elections, there's a lot more focus on that, and people don't actually realise what local councils do, but that's what affects them most on a personal level. So it's more important that those issues are tackled, because for a lot of people, things such as potholes and bins being collected is fundamental to their lives. So unless issues like that are addressed more, people aren't going to realise what they're voting for. And obviously with the general elections, I feel like publicity campaigns suck people into voting for certain candidates and they don't fully know what they're signing up for, whereas local elections are key issues to local residents, so there should be a lot more focus on local elections, not just general elections.
Would you agree with that, Rex?
I certainly agree. I do think a lot of people kind of have the tendency to kind of think more on the general election and do kind of neglect local elections, and I do think it's important to be able to understand that local elections are very important to people's lives and well-being. For example, littering is a major issue, for example, and I think that by just raising awareness about local elections and realizing that they can change that from happening, I think people would therefore vote more in local elections.
Claire?
And we were talking before, weren't we, Kev, about where young people get their news from? I sound very old, obviously, saying to you guys, but where would you get your local news from? Is it TikTok? Is it BBC News Online, which I'm hoping you're going to say yes? Is it Radio Merseyside? Where do you find out what's happening where you live?
Well, I think I'm quite a nutcase in the fact that I don't have TikTok or Instagram or social media, so I try and sort of read news articles and sort of read from both perspectives, from my perspective and other people's perspective, to try and get that common ground, to see where the majority of people lie, to sort of find out what not only my key issues are but other people's key issues are, to sort of, because obviously I like journalism and I like politics, so in the future I'd want to go into that, but to get into that I need to understand it as a foundation and as a core, so I think that's quite helpful.
Sourcing your information is obviously massively important. Where would you get yours from, Rachel?
Well, I do read the news a lot online, and my dad a lot has the news on TV, so I've always watched that from a young age. But I do think the majority of people our age do mostly just get their news source from TikTok and Instagram, which can be quite dangerous because a lot of misinformation is spread, so there needs to be more awareness about that. But obviously the BBC does use online platforms too, which is a really positive resource because it's showing correct fact-checked information online, whereas other less informative sources could become a problem if they aren't controlled properly.
Yeah, well said, Rachel. And Rex, for you then, being a young man, where would you source your information from?
I must confess, I am guilty of taking my information from social media and understand that there are risks involved, so I must change personally. It's not something I would recommend to other people because obviously you might not be aware of certain biases, so I do think that for young voters, they must take their information from non-social media sources, or if they do take from social media sources, they just need to be aware of the certain biases or like what type of narrative may be potentially being spun by absorbing that information.
So it's okay to get your information from there, I suppose, as long as you do your research and you're thorough about where you're getting your information from, right?
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. And just quickly, just to finish off, obviously you're fantastic students at Hugh Bird. For anybody listening there and they're young and they're not really too bothered about voting, what would you say, Lily, to encourage people that it is important to vote and you should, you can cast a vote when you're eligible to vote. It is really important.
I think definitely start like exploring different options in both general and sort of national elections, because I think local politics do matter to everyone, no matter like what they think, or like if they don't really understand it, then maybe they need to not need to start understanding it, but maybe reading around politics as a topic, because it is central to everyday life.
And so there's a bunch of kids on the street corner there, Rachel, and they're not really too fussed about voting. They're not really too sure. They don't really care about what's happening. What would your message be to them to say, to vote?
It'd probably be that the country is you're going to be growing up in. It depends on what you vote for. So it's really important that you do partake in politics, because by doing so, you can directly affect what happens in your local area and even on a national scale. So it's really important to have your say, because otherwise decision makers are just not going to be acting on your behalf. So the best thing to do is vote, because that is the only way to have your say in politics.
And Rex, I'm 17 years of age. I'm riding around with my mates. I'm on my bike. I don't really care about voting. I'm not really too fussed. Tell me why I should vote.
Because politics affects your life, it affects your future. It affects basically almost every single aspect of your life is basically determined by legislation and politics in general. So I believe that you should be able to have an opinion and vote and be able to change what you don't like about things that will affect you in the long term. And also historically, a lot of people have died for the concept of democracy. So I would say to you, your ancestors died for it, you might as well use it.
Brilliantly put. Anthony, you must be very, very proud. Quickly.
Oh yes, very proud. They are fantastic students, and we're proud of the whole Sefton Sixth Form College, but these students are particularly great. Yeah,
they're amazing. Anthony, thanks for coming down today. Rex, pleasure to meet you. Rachel and Lily, thank you for joining us on the breakfast show this morning. And like Rachel said there, the children are our future. So, and it's important that if you are young and if you can cast a vote, or when you are voting in the future, that you take that opportunity, because like Rex said, there's a lot of people that have made some sacrifices so that you can vote, and think about your own families and how important you can make a difference by voting. I think that's clear, isn't it? You can make a difference by voting. The time now is 8.